Well, promoter Eddie Hearn, good to see you again back in Matchroom HQ. I've not seen you yet, so I can say Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Much of a break in the Hearn household at all?
Yeah, probably about a week, 10 days in the sun. It was nice. Just really trying to switch off after a massive run to the end of the year. Obviously, Day of Reckoning kind of threw Christmas off a little bit. Travelling back, getting back late on Christmas Eve, and just trying to really prepare for that period is really designed and lends itself to just planning fight cards. Making sure that obviously we get off to a good start. The phones are ringing. People want to know when they're fighting. It's a little bit more quiet because fighters are generally eating and enjoying themselves, but it's still a very busy part of the year planning the schedule, and that continues now. And obviously heading off to Quebec tomorrow to see Callum Smith become a 2-division world champion, and then moving straight into our first show in Belfast, and then on to Las Vegas after that for Conor Benn, Next Gen on Feb 10th, and it's just solid from there. Mexico Feb 16, Feb 24th Edgar Berlanga, and it's non-stop. So yeah, a nice rest, feeling good, ready to go.
Quick one on Callum Smith, of course. If he can beat Artur Beterbiev this weekend, where does that rank in terms of away wins for Brits, in your opinion?
Well, listen, I'm going. It's a long way, and it's -20, right? I'm going because I fancy it. I really fancy it. And look, we signed Callum Smith 13 years ago. I posted a picture on my story yesterday. We were both clueless at that point in our boxing journeys. And Callum's done amazingly well. I'm going because I'm supporting him, and I also believe he's going to win. I see him knocking Artur Beterbiev out. It's a tough task. Beterbiev is a monster. Arguably the #1 light heavyweight in the world. We think it's Dmitry Bivol or maybe even Callum Smith. But those three, you got Yard up there. You got some great light heavyweights, and it's doable. It really is. I can see it. Every time I think about the fight, I can see it. And if he does do it, it'll be a massive, massive win for a British fighter. And it will take him straight to the undisputed shot against Dmitry Bivol.
You see it being that catch counter left?
I do. I think, that's the shot, and I think Beterbiev is aggressive. He does make mistakes. You've only got to look at the Callum Johnson fight, which was, 5-6 years ago, when he was even more in his prime than he is now. Callum had him all over the place with that left hook. And I just think Callum Smith, is sharper and smarter, and I think he punches harder with that shot. And I do believe he's going to win that fight.
And you have confidence as a team. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Callum Smith in this fight, but you mentioned about Dmitry Bivol. You believe if Callum Smith wins this fight, you have confidence as a team that it will be Callum Smith versus Bivol
Yeah,
next.
I mean, obviously we signed an agreement with Saudi Arabia for Dmitry Bivol to fight again in the undisputed fight. And, it's our aim, obviously, for that to be Callum Smith. I think everyone out there believes it will be Beterbiev, but we've got other plans. And for Dmitry, he just wants to make sure that he can unify the division, try and become undisputed, and hopefully now we're just one fight away.
We saw last week, Eddie, amongst yourself and other news outlets, that the news had begun to emerge of a deal being struck between Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou. Why, Eddie, in your opinion, right now, was this the fight to make?
We found it ourselves there because everybody signed a contract to fight Deontay Wilder. AJ signed, Deontay Wilder signed, and we were announcing it that night in the ring in Saudi Arabia, the Day of Reckoning. And obviously, when Deontay Wilder lost to Joseph Parker, I think the mind of His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh was ticking throughout the rest of the night. And straight after that fight, we went straight into a meeting and we looked at the alternatives, and we all felt that the biggest fight that we could bring to Saudi Arabia was Francis Ngannou. It's a fascinating matchup. It's one that we felt lacked credibility before his amazing performance against Tyson Fury in a fight that we believe he should have won. And he's a dangerous, dangerous man. There's a lot to lose for AJ in this fight, but he wants to be involved in the biggest fights. Of course, he wants a shot at the world heavyweight title, but we believe this plan will allow him to do that, but first fit in this heavyweight blockbuster in March. And if you look at the activity of Anthony Joshua, this is now his 4th fight in 10 months. It's incredible. And he's enjoying that activity. He's fresh. You saw his performance. I think he's in the form of his career. And I believe he'll do a job on Francis Ngannou.
Listening to Anthony Joshua speak prior to the Day of Reckoning, he said this fight would interest him from an entertainment perspective, not necessarily in terms of a fight navigating him closer to becoming a 3-time world heavyweight champion. Is it unfair, Eddie, to call this fight a keep busy fight? Is it a dangerous fight?
Oh, yeah, it's a very dangerous fight. I mean, on so many levels. Number one, you're expected to beat Francis Ngannou. Number two, he's very dangerous. He hits very hard. He's very, very strong. So, what's the reward of winning? Yeah, we know financially it's a good deal for Anthony Joshua, but also the reward more so is just putting the pressure on trying to get a shot at Tyson Fury and hopefully that undisputed championship, because that's the route that we're on. I believe AJ is going to become undisputed heavyweight world champion. I said he's going to beat Wallin, he's going to beat Wilder, and he's going to beat Fury. Really what we've got to focus on now is beating Ngannou. If he can beat Ngannou in style, just like he beat Wallin in style, that'll just make the demand continue to grow for AJ against Tyson Fury. He would have demolished two people that Tyson Fury really struggled against. And it will make people start to believe, and as I believe they are now, that AJ can win that fight. But that's in the future. Hopefully Tyson Fury can do the business against Alexander Usyk, and hopefully AJ can deal with Ngannou. But it's a dangerous fight, a huge fight. You're going to see these two giants next to each other, both carved out of stone, both punch like mules. It's a really, really explosive heavyweight matchup.
What can we expect, Eddie, in terms of press conferences and formal announcements soon?
Yeah, next Monday, January the 15th, first press conference. Another huge event in Saudi Arabia. I know people talk about these big fights going to Saudi Arabia. Good, because we ain't going to get these fights without it. If you look at the run that they've had, AJ against Ngannou, the Day of Reckoning card, Joshua against Wallin, Deontay Wilder, Fury against Usyk, AJ against Ngannou, that's over the space of 4 or 5 months. You're getting all these fights that you would not be getting. So, we live in this thing called the world. Boxing is not just in the US. Boxing is not just in the UK. We've got to make sure that we continue to bring big fights to the UK. But to see all these big fights happening so quickly, and to see the undercards, and again, you'll see very shortly the undercards for Fury Usyk, for AJ against Ngannou. It's next level stuff, and it's a pleasure to be a part of it.
You don't think then, Eddie, that you see comments on social media, big fights landing in the Middle East, that it's not a threat to British boxing, it's not a danger to these big fights happening in Britain?
You're not going to get Fury Usyk in the UK. You're not going to get AJ Ngannou in the UK. So you're getting them. So if they take place in another country, so be it. Like I said, there's a whole world out there, and boxing in the Middle East is growing, and sport in Saudi Arabia particularly is growing at a huge, huge pace. And the opportunities for the fighters, speak to Dmitry Bivol, speak to AJ, speak to Usyk, speak to Fury, ask them if they're happy. The answer is very. They're getting the big fights, they're getting financially rewarded for it, and fans are getting value for money on the pay-per-views. Look at Day of Reckoning. Look at these cards coming up. It's good news for the fans that we're seeing all these major fights.
And you sort of said there, Eddie, you can't give away too much, but some of the fights we're seeing on social media being talked about, the likes of Deontay Wilder against Zhilei Zhang, Joseph Parker against Filip Hrgovic.
I mean, look, again, for us, we'll have fighters on, February 17th, Fury Usyk, in March as well for AJ against Ngannou, and the same we're speaking continuously to Queensbury. They've got fight. I mean, it's just when you sit down and plan these cards, you cannot believe the plans, and that's all I'm going to say. I'll leave it to His Excellency to develop those plans, to put those fights in place. But the vision for the cards is unbelievable, and just two huge events coming soon.
Do you expect AJ to be ringside for Fury Usyk?
Possibly. I mean, it's 3 weeks before his fight, so it's whether or not he's training out in Saudi Arabia. I think it would be a good idea for him to be there for that fight. Obviously, he wants the winner, and Ben Davison talks about they want the Alexander Usyk fight as well. It'd be a third crack at a whip for me, and I think for the whole country. We'd love the Tyson Fury fight, but let's see. Hopefully, then both make it in the ring, and another huge event to unfold.
We look forward to next week. A few other bits I want to talk to you about. Ryan Garcia seemingly taking to social media to announce that the Devin Haney fight won't be happening. What was your thoughts on all of that?
Weird, really, really weird. I mean, DM me a few times saying, just want to confirm, this is the fight I want, Devin Haney. You know, Oscar was on to me. I had numerous conversations with Eric Gomez. We're working with the Zone to put an offer together for that fight. There's been rumblings of that fight potentially in the Middle East as well. And then just tweeted and said, change my mind, I'm fighting Rolly Romero. I get it. You know, I mistakenly believed that Ryan Garcia was a legacy guy. You know, he was a guy that wanted to fight the top guys for the championship. But I can't blame him for what he's doing. He's taking the easy route to a championship. And, you know, I know he's been hanging around with Floyd Mayweather recently. Maybe it was words of advice. I don't think it's a terrible decision, but I think the fans are disappointed because I think Haney against Garcia is a tremendous fight. But I'm sure Ryan Garcia looked at Devin Haney and went, that is a really tough fight. And I can beat Rolly Romero. So I'm going to fight him and get my belt. I get it. You know, Ismael Barroso is the mandatory. I'm sure Golden Boy can do a deal with him to step aside to allow Ryan to fight Rolly. But, you know, it's disappointing because I felt like Ryan Garcia could have given the fans a mega fight against Devin Haney.
And a little bit of back and forth between Bill Haney and Bernard Hopkins over the weekend, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Bernard's always ready to go. We've seen that a few times in the last couple of months, so I'm not going to get on the wrong side of him. And, you know, Bill's a great mouthpiece. You know, he's a smart mind, but he's a great 24/7 mouthpiece for Devin, you know, and they've got to realign now and we'll talk to them about what could be next.
Perhaps from his career perspective, you can understand why Ryan hasn't taken or doesn't want this fight next. But what about the reasons he's been given in terms of pay-per-view numbers?
Yeah, look, it's very difficult. I mean, in Ryan's mind, he deserves the lion's share of that pot. But Devin Haney, who's the undisputed lightweight world champion, he's a 2-division world champion. People want to talk rubbish about 35,000 buys, 50,000 buys. It's all just rubbish and narrative. But it's easy to do that to make an excuse why you shouldn't fight someone. Everyone saw the arena in San Francisco. It was a 16,000 sellout. The event was a huge success. But it's very easy to spin a narrative of why you don't want to fight someone. And, you know, I think that's what Ryan's done. I'm not fighting Devin, and, you know, and they want the lion's share of that pot. I know that. And listen, Ryan Garcia is a huge draw. He's coming off a massive pay-per-view against Gervonta Davis. These guys, they need each other. So disappointed that we couldn't give the fans that brilliant fight.
Will Devin have to face Sandor Martin?
Yeah, that is a mandatory that's due. I mean, it's not the flavour of the month, that fight, and with no disrespect to Sandor, but, you know, at some point he might have to deal with that. Maybe there's a move to 147. We'll have to see.
Joe Cordina, a few rumours on social media that he could actually defend his world title on the Fury Usyk undercard. Any truth in that one?
No, I mean, we've got to sit down with Tony and decide what's next. You know, obviously we've had a long-standing relationship with Joe, and, you know, we've got an opportunity to stage his next fight, of course. So we want to keep him active. He wants to be in the big fights. You know, I think Joe's made it very clear to us publicly he wants the most amount of money for the biggest fight possible. So I think we've done a great job with him. After the hand injury came back, we got him that world championship. He defended it in Monaco, and could be, you know, an early defence for him in 2024.
Now, I know you've got meetings to get to, Eddie, so last couple now. Katie Taylor vacating the lightweight belts. Talk us through that. Was there any discussion, and perhaps what that means with relation to a trilogy with Chantelle Cameron as well? Yeah,
I mean, I think the fight that Katie wants is Chantelle Cameron. You know, we know there's the Serrano fight, there's other options, but let's be honest, you know, Cameron 1 and Cameron 2 were 2 brilliant events, 2 classic fights. And I think the trilogy would be an incredible fight. So Katie has said to us, you know, we would like to fight Chantelle Cameron. We're going to open talks with her and her team this week. You know, we're looking around May time. There has been progression with Croke Park. We'll have to see how that unfolds. And yeah, that's the fight. Hopefully Chantelle Cameron's up for that fight. It's a big event. And yeah, that's definitely the plan for Katie Taylor.
And with Katie vacating the lightweight belts, obviously it frees up some opportunities for our fighters around 135 pounds, Beatrice Ferreira, Rhiannon Dixon, and in line, it seems, to fight Caroline Dubois.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for a lot of young fighters. You know, Caroline Dubois made us an offer for Rhiannon Dixon. We made them a counter offer, about 3 times more. I guess that fight's heading to purse bid, which, you know, we would love to stage that fight. Caroline Dubois is a great talent. Randon Dixon's a fantastic young fighter. So we're going to make a big play for that fight. Beatrice Ferreira's sitting right there for the belts as well. You know, she can fluctuate between lightweight and super featherweight. What a talent she is. So very exciting. You know, Katie's going to focus really on 140, and you know, she still holds 2 belts at 135 for now, so we'll see what the future is. But yeah, big news for Rhiannon Dixon coming soon.
What was your take, Eddie, on the O'Hara Davis fight over the weekend as well? And in terms of that, what might it mean for him being an option for some of our fighters in and around 140 pounds?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, I know we've always had our differences with O'Hara. He went over there, he had a, you know, great deal with Golden Boy, made a lot of money, got to fight in Vegas, got chinned. I mean, it happens, you know, didn't recover. And, you know, I'm sure he'll be back.
Potential for that Dalton Smith fight?
No, we're working on a big name for Dalton Smith. I mean, if I can get this fight over the line, I'll be very, very happy, because I think it will surprise a lot of people. It's the world level step up that Dalton Smith needs, that can enable us to bring a big event to Sheffield Arena, to start building him as a big star. And we keep talking about all these guys at 140, Liam Paro, Richardson Hitchens, you know, the guys that we've got, Montana Love, if you like. I know he got beat, but we need to put Dalton Smith into that frame now, you know, and because I believe he's just this one fight. When he wins this fight, obviously you got, you know, our guys that are right on the verge of fighting for a world title, Jack Catterall, you got Devin Haney, who's the champion, you got Regis Prograis. Dalton can be in that mix, and this is the fight to bridge that gap. So we're looking forward to trying to get it done.
And we heard you with Ariel Helwani, our good friend, last night. A quick word on Leigh Wood versus Josh Warrington too, and Josh Taylor, Jack Catterall too.
Yeah, I mean, again, Catterall Taylor's kind of like rearing its head again. Want to make that fight. You know, it's the fight for both guys.
Could that go to Saudi?
Maybe. I mean, look, they want big fights. That's a massive fight. But you know, for me, we want to keep these fights in the UK as well, whether that's Ben Eubank, whether that's Catterall Taylor, you know, whether that's in Ireland with Katie Taylor against Chantelle Cameron, Wood Warrington. We must nail these fights. And May the 18th is a potential date for Wood Warrington. We're waiting for final confirmation from Nottingham Forest. But you know, those kind of fights, Taylor Cameron, Wood Warrington, Taylor Catterall, we need to nail those into the schedule at home. And then, you know, making those big fights internationally is fantastic for boxing, but important to make sure we nail those pillars down here as well.
And overnight, this morning, Eddie, we saw that Stevie Spark had announced his retirement. A surprise to some.
Yeah, it was a surprise. I think he had some big fights ahead of him. You know, one of my favourite fighters. All the guys take the mickey out of me here because I'm a big Stevie Spark supporter. But you know, great lad. I mean, he ended up, you know, from small fights in Australia really, to headlining in Cleveland. You know, fighting on the Canelo Alvarez undercard. So he had a good run, and you know, was a very dangerous fighter. And we wish him all the best in retirement.
And just finally, Eddie, before you set off to Quebec for all the Brits watching at home, why should we all get behind Callum Smith this weekend?
Yeah, Callum Smith, great servant for British boxing, great lad, great family, and I believe he's going to do it. One of the great wins for British boxing, I think, coming Saturday from Quebec. You'll see us all jumping over that top rope and celebrating in style.
Eddie, safe flight, and we'll catch up next week.
Cheers.